Thanks, everybody, and good morning. It's a pleasure to be with all of you again today. Hopefully, I think I see a few familiar faces who joined us yesterday for the overview and keynote of the Fuel Initiative with myself and my colleagues on the Fuel team. For those of you who were not here with us yesterday and perhaps didn't hear the last panel, quick overview of what Fuel is. Fuel stands for the Future Use of Energy in Louisiana. We're a team of about 5 professionals that are based out of LSU but working statewide with a wide coalition of partners, all the way up from Ruston, Louisiana and Shreveport, down to the Bayou region and across to Lake Charles, working to advance the energy transition across Louisiana. We're doing that with an up to $160 million investment from the National Science Foundation from the Engines program, and we're focused on workforce development, technology commercialization, use-inspired research and development, with a very key focus on inclusive community engagement across all of those verticals. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning, talking a little bit about what we're doing in the workforce space. As you just heard, I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Workforce Development for this exciting initiative, and I'm even more excited to share with you this morning some of the great workforce things that are happening across the Louisiana ecosystem. For Fuel in the workforce development space, we are taking a very keen eye to looking at how we can scale the existing and terribly effective workforce programs that we have in energy in Louisiana, creating a networked approach to cohesive workforce pipelines for our energy industry that exists today and the ways that it's going to be transitioning and transforming for the years to come. So I have a few partners on stage with me today who are going to be sharing some of the best practices in the landscape currently that we're looking to continue supporting and partnering with across the Fuel timeline and spectrum of the next, hopefully, 10 years or so of the grant and beyond. I'm excited for them to share their stories and have a conversation. We'll let everybody chat for the next few minutes, and we'll save about 5 minutes at the end for questions as well. So if you do have a pressing question, make sure to write it down. We'll definitely keep some time for that at the end. So without further ado, let me turn it over to my esteemed panelists. I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves, their name, their title, their organization, and a quick overview of what you're doing to impact the energy workforce in Louisiana. Salem, you want to start at the end?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Salem Habte, and I'm Workforce and Entrepreneurship Manager at Greater New Orleans, Inc., which is the economic development organization for the Greater New Orleans region, 10 parishes in southeast Louisiana. And so I run our workforce partnerships with universities and community colleges across South Louisiana, all with the mission of making sure that our population is prepared for a future energy transition or expansion into the clean and renewable space. And so this has led us into a really exciting place where we started this maybe about 2 years ago, and these partnerships have really evolved since then. So I'm excited to talk about what that looks like.
Donovan.
Hello, my name is Donovan Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of our EPIC Consortium, which stands for Energy Partners for Innovation and Collaboration, but I'm also the Dean of our Energy Sciences Division at River Parishes Community College. So we are a 2-year college. We have 4 campuses in the South Louisiana area, and what we've been doing for this effort is simply taking what we do best, so our process technology, our instrumentation technology programs, and improving them with integrated learning experiences like internships, collaborations with 4-year institutions, and bringing industry to the table to help us optimize how we operate.
Good morning. My name is Baraynia, Robillard, and I'm with ExxonMobil. I'm the Baton Rouge Area Workforce Development Manager. I've been in this role about 2 years now, but my job is really to work on the pathways to help students and our future talent really understand how to get into the pipeline to become a part of industry and ExxonMobil. So I am happy to be here this morning to talk a little bit about our high school internship as well as anything else that may come up. So thank you, Lacy.
Y'all, I'm so excited for this panel. Sorry, I'm bursting over here. I just have to say, brag on these folks. When we were sending out the questions and talking through the panel makeup, at some point on that email thread, Donovan replied, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but he said, "Hey, family," so on and so forth. And I just, oh my gosh, yes.
We spend so much time together. That's how I feel. So.
I know. So I'm just bursting with excitement to have us all here sharing out what we're doing. To that end, Baraynia, I want to go back to you. Okay. Tell us about some of the key initiatives that you're doing at Exxon, specifically the high school internship program.
Absolutely. So ExxonMobil ExxonMobil has had this program called the North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative, because that's kind of where it started. And that's really a no-cost one-year program where we work directly with Baton Rouge Community College. And we were looking really for an opportunity on how do we get students engaged earlier. So the population is primarily served with the NBRIDI program, which is what we affectionately call it, is primarily adult population. So those who've already worked for some period of time, 10, 15 years, and are looking for an opportunity to transition into the industry. And so we were trying to figure out, well, how do we start getting students earlier engaged as they come out of high school? And thankfully, East Baton Rouge Parish school system at the time was also looking at how can we start doing more with industry to get our students ready for jobs when they graduate. So Dr. Cito Narcisse actually challenged us. He was the superintendent at the time to have an internship program. So our internship program is about 7-8 weeks during the summer, where students are able to come on our facilities. They are paid, so we pay well over $18 an hour. There is no overtime. They get acclimated into what it's like to work at ExxonMobil. So we started off with 6 interns probably about 4 years ago. We're going into our 5th year, and this year we have, the last year we had 40 interns all at the same time. And they are high school students, so we're talking about rising juniors, rising seniors, or recent graduates. And now we're looking at opportunities for them to start coming directly into being ExxonMobil employees once they get to that place where they're actually ready. But we're attracting them early. They're advocates. They become ambassadors for ExxonMobil, and they're looking at an opportunity to become acclimated into the industry.
That is amazing. And I love that you highlighted responding to that call from education. So you had educators standing up saying, we need that work-based learning experience. We need that industry partnership. And you guys responded, you stood up, and you created this innovative program. On that note, Donovan, I'm curious, could you talk a little bit more about how RPCC works directly with industry, and how is the EPIC Consortium that you're overseeing facilitating more of that engagement and that relationship building?
Yes. So one of the things that RPCC does well, right, we're surrounded by many of the chemical employers like BASF, Dow, ExxonMobil is down the street, CF Industries, and et cetera, right? And what we've been doing well with our process technology and our technical study degree pathways is we've been inviting those employers into the classrooms so they can help us educate our students on how to get those employment opportunities. How the consortium plays into all of this, right? You have this energy expansion that's going on. We want to do what we do well, but then add experiences to what we've done well. So internships with four-year institutions. Historically, RPCC has not done an internship collaboration with like a University of Louisiana or LSU, right? The consortium is working to bring that into the fold. Another thing that we're doing is we're going to run an after-school program in our Donaldsonville area for 2 primary schools so we can get into the teacher's classroom, but help those teachers expose those 3rd grade students to what does a career in STEM looks like. The consortium is doing that. That's going to touch point with the primary phase. When we think about intermediate, we're going to run a summer camp, primarily centered around energy and those employers that employ the energy type jobs. So for example, you have the Shell, you have the BASF. That will be strictly for 7th graders. So our goal is to take what we do best and then add touch points to address different audiences like the 3rd grade, the 7th grade, and bringing on internship opportunities with the 4-year institutions that RPCC historically have been left out of the fold. And we're working with those 4-year institutions that I named earlier.
That's amazing. Everything you just mentioned, I think, hits on that continuum of true learning and educational and workforce development experiences, right? So going from 3rd grade all the way into those 4-year partnerships and the PhD exposure, et cetera. Tremendous work. Salem, y'all are doing quite a bit to that end as well, bridging the gap between industry needs and especially some of our HBCU and college learners. Could you talk a little bit about what the H to the Future program is focused on to that end in the HBCU internship program?
Sure. So to zoom out just and talk a little bit about the H to the Future initiative that GNO Inc. runs with 26 incredible partners across South Louisiana. GNO Inc. really focuses on driving business growth as a way to build a thriving middle class in South Louisiana. And so with energy being the key industry that it is in our state, it's a huge focus of ours that we're diversifying our energy economy. A couple years ago, we noticed a few challenges within the traditional energy sector. Number one being that 20,000 jobs have been lost over the last 20 years in Louisiana in traditional oil and gas, surpassing averages across the country. The other thing is that 22% of jobs in petroleum and coal are currently held by minorities, which is not a match with our current population distribution. And the pay gap and that disparity between minorities holding those positions and white workers is massive. And so combined with massive opportunities in the hydrogen space, with our demand there, net potential for offshore wind, we decided to really put our partners at the helm of driving this energy expansion by growing our R&D assets, driving business, creating jobs. And so we won $50 million from the Economic Development Administration to lead H to the Future, and we're matched by our state by almost $25 million. And so on the workforce side, what we're doing now is working with 8 community colleges, 4 HBCUs, and other universities in the region to make sure that there are programs relevant to this new set of industries. So, for example, on our HBCU side, we actually funded the creation of degree specializations in clean and renewable energy at 4 of our different partner schools in the New Orleans, greater New Orleans region. And so, for example, at Southern Baton Rouge, they've really taken this into their own hands and created a new energy management specialization for students. And so students are able to sort of get additional acumen in whatever field they're studying, whether that be engineering or policy, sort of understanding environmental resources necessary, supply chain in new energy. And so these projects were housed at the business school intentionally so that we could pipeline Black and brown students into high-paying jobs in this new sector. And they've really expanded beyond just the business schools to include more students. And the vision for that project for me is beyond just creating really necessary and relevant curriculum in close partnership with industry, is to make sure that our population isn't just able to enter these new fields, but are able to advance it. And so, over the first few semesters of these classes rolling out, we've had over 100 students enter these courses as a result of these minor programs. And so this summer, we're offering an internship component using our flagship internship program at GNO Inc. as a vehicle for this work to connect these students in these programs at our HBCUs to internships at clean and renewable energy, or in roles in clean and renewable energy at energy companies in our region. And so that's the perfect realization of our mission, and we've been able to get that done in a really short amount of time.
Amazing. That's so impressive. I had the pleasure of working with Salem on H to the Future for the last several years before transitioning to Fuel. And one of the key themes that I heard through that work at H to the Future that I continue hearing with Fuel is coming from the educator side of how do we get these industry partnerships? We want industry partnerships. What does that look like? How do we do that? And then on the part of industry, how can we break into the elementary schools, the high schools, the 2-year schools, the 4-year schools more effectively? On both sides, there's this demand, and there's so often lacks that nexus point in between. So Baraynia, I'm curious from you, the fact that y'all raised your hands, you stood up to the superintendent's call, what were some of the incremental steps that you took after saying, yes, we're in, and what advice would you give to your peers and industry partners who come to the table with those very real questions about engaging and replicating your success?
I think I would be remiss not to mention that we also had some level of support from some of our other organizations that support businesses like BRAC, so Baton Rouge Area Chamber of Commerce also supported that initiative. So you asked, where do we start? What were some of those incremental steps? So we really had to, the school system was very supportive, right? So we started off with 6 interns that first year. They actually helped us to select who were going to be those 6 interns that first year. We started off just in the maintenance area, so we didn't transition into having students in engineering, the laboratory. We started off kind of small, so we had students working with electricians, with instrumentation, with machinists, and it was really a lot of shadowing, right? A lot of shadowing and a lot of professional development those first years. Now as time has transition, right? You get a lot of feedback from students that we actually want to have some hands-on engagement. We want to actually be able to touch the instruments. We want to do more than just go into the field and learn and see what everybody else does. So over the years, We've become a lot more comfortable with low-risk, hands-on activities and very controlled working environments. So now, if you come into our facilities, you'll actually see students actually working with tools. They actually go into the field. We make sure that they are set up to go into the field. We've been doing that since day one, so they have on their full FRCs, PPE, everything that's required for them to be successful as an ExxonMobil employee. So they actually feel like they're a part of the family, and that's one of the key things that they always say. Like, I realize I'm not just seen as a student or just seen as, you know, an extra person that's here to watch, but I'm actually seen as an integral part of the team. And that's a part that they really enjoy. So really the incremental step starts with making a decision that we're going to get out of the boat, we're going to try something, and we're actually going to make it happen. Like, we oftentimes just sit in fear and we relish and we wonder, do we have everything? Are all of our liabilities taken care of? What are all the risks that are there? Get out of the boat and just try it. Like, start with 4 interns, start with 2. And then from there, make step changes, or you could be like ExxonMobil. We went from 10 to 40 within 1 year, right? So I challenge any industry to come out here and get out here with us. I mean, we have some amazing talent in our students, and they want to be fed. Like, they are resilient, they're at the perfect age, and they want to be a part of what's out here. They have no idea what happens in our industry. I feel like I'm getting long-winded, but they want to know what is it like, but they need our help to be able to make those adjustments. So thank you.
No, that's amazing. And, you know, I think one of the key ideas that you touched on that to me has always been a cornerstone of effective workforce development is when industry partners approach workforce development or any type of educational partnership, not from the perspective of community engagement or philanthropy or sort of a check-the-box community outreach piece. There can be that added benefit, but really seeing whatever program it is that they're putting in place or intervention that they're putting in place as key to their workforce development goals and their retention, their recruitment objectives. I think when you have that merger and that marriage of, yes, doing something good for the community, to be sure, but solving an internal problem that you have as a company, that's where the magic happens. That's where you really start to see that change. So kudos to you guys for making all of those students feeling like they're not just there as a guest, but they're there as a part of the family, really contributing. That's game changing. Donovan, I'm curious from your perspective. RPCC is doing obviously a number of things off campus to better integrate yourselves within the community, create those pipelines for further retention, recruitment of students and community members. What are some of the things that you're looking at on campus? Once the students get to you, how are you looking at some innovative opportunities to keep those students, and especially more diverse students, on campus learning and ideally graduating with certifications and skills?
Right. So, again, River Parishes Community College does a great job in educating process operators and technicians to go work at companies like Dow and ExxonMobil and all of those similar companies. However, as we expand and we continue to do what we do well, but we integrate some new things like what does solar look like in our program, what does wind look like in our program, what does renewable energy, right, embedding those certificate training opportunities into our curricula, we're going to need new space. New space means we're going to need new material. New material means we're going to need new training modules. It also means we're going to need more people who are skilled in those areas to educate our students for those areas. So one of the things that we're doing is we are looking to purchase and build a building that will house our energy sciences division, but in a more expansive way, right? But this building will be different than the buildings that we have on our campus. The building will have all of the materials and the training tools that we now have that will address our current curricula and that will address the optimized curricula, but it will also embed some aspect of child daycare, because what we understand is we do not want to leave out those individuals, those families that want to be employed to work for the ExxonMobils but have children in the family, right? So the child daycare center will allow those individuals to come get educated and drop their child off, pick their child back up and go home, right? And then leave with a degree. That's one way that we plan to optimize our on-campus learning. Another way that we plan to optimize, and we've started started that this semester is we've invited industry into the classroom. So we have relationships with Dow and BASF to where they are doing instructor sharing, which means they teach some of our courses. The benefit of that is you're being taught by people who you could be employed by, right? So it addresses any skills gap. It addresses the needs of, hey, how do we get employed at an ExxonMobil? Well, she's the teacher, right? So we're doing stuff like that. In addition to, I've kind of coerced or highly encouraged my instructors and my faculty to take plant tours, right? It's fine to teach in our classrooms, but I want my students to be in the plant. I want my students to be in the manufacturing sites so they can link what they see to what they're being taught, right? That's how we will close the skills gap. So those are just some of the initiatives that we are doing to improve and optimize our on-campus offerings.
That's phenomenal. As a mother of 3 small children, daycare. Let's just do a round of applause for daycare, everyone. Yes. You know, Salem mentioned in one of your responses that statistic around 20-something% of energy jobs being held by minorities. What we also know is when we look at the highest demand, highest wage jobs across South Louisiana in the energy space, about 80+% are held by men. So there's a massive gender discrepancy in that space as well. And if we want to engage women in this workforce, we have to meet many of those working age women where they are, which is mothers. And dealing with the challenges that motherhood brings on. As we're talking about those disenfranchised, or traditionally disenfranchised populations and how to better engage them, Slim, I would love to talk with you a little bit more about what y'all are doing in this space of returning citizens and those folks who have been incarcerated for a significant period of time, specifically your partnership with the Louisiana Parole Project.
Yeah, absolutely. So our significant partnership with the Parole Project pertains to H2 Workforce, which is a part of H to the Future, and actually Donovan represents our partnership with RPCC in that effort and does a phenomenal job. And so that's the partnership with 8 of our regional community colleges to expand current trainings relevant to new energy applications or create net new trainings across the community college system. The difference in this initiative that's really kind of groundbreaking is that we've gotten the colleges to work together to not cannibalize each other in these trainings, understand each other's unique strengths, as well as really enforcing, I mean, this is something the colleges do regardless, as Donovan has laid out, but making sure that industry is at the forefront of the planning and choosing of these trainings that we decide to fund, right? And so in addition to H2 Workforce, we've partnered with the Urban League of Louisiana and the Parole Project to reach out to communities traditionally left out of traditional energy applications, such as Black and Indigenous people of color, our rural population, and as Lacy alluded to, returning citizens. So 18,000 people are released from Louisiana prisons every single year. And so not only do we want to make sure that these people have pathways to dignified lives and high-paying jobs, but that's also a huge workforce challenge that we really do need to consider to make sure that they're tapped in. And so the Parole Project has taken remarkable leadership in making sure that their clients who are in parole understand the energy opportunity, understand the skills that they can gain in a short amount of time, the funding that's available for them, and then also accompanying them to the colleges within H2 Workforce to see these trainings, see, touch, feel, understand eligibility, and then guiding them through the entire process in the suite of services that they provide very well, helping them apply for WIOA funding, just really guiding them through the entire process. They've also created some solutions for transportation, which typically is an issue for our returning citizens. A lot of these schools are in rural areas without bus lines, right? And so they've actually partnered with the Workforce Commission on a ride-to-work pilot where their clients can get e-bikes to go to some of these courses, and they're working on rideshare credits as well. And so a lot of that work has rolled out very recently. Already across H2 Workforce, we've had 900 completers in this suite of trainings. And so now the work is measuring that against our baseline. So what are the demographics of that? And how are we improving with urban leagues and parole projects involvement as far as diversity and true inclusion?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I don't know if Dr. Tiffany Howard is here, but if she is, major shout out to her for working with the Louisiana Workforce Commission and unveiling that unique pot of funds for those transportation pilots. That was just extraordinary leadership on her part. But I think points to what happens when we all collaborate and have, 2 heads is better than one. Well, 15 heads, 25 heads. It's certainly better than any of us individually trying to break through some of these long-standing entrenched challenges. So, we've been talking about all the great work that I am obviously thrilled you're all undertaking, huge cheerleader for each of you in your endeavors, but let's be real. If this were easy, we'd all be doing it, and we wouldn't have a panel about this. So let's talk about the challenges. What are some of the tough spots that you're facing? And I'll just kind of go down the row and let each of you respond, but what are the biggest challenges, your 3 a.m. panic attack moments that you're dealing with? Am I the only one who has those? Brian's like, no. What are your challenges? What are you trying to overcome?
I would say one of the biggest challenges that we're overcoming, and I think educators have said this as well, is the impact of COVID-19, right? So a lot of our students, so I'm a millennial, in case you can't tell, so we have some that are entering our workforce now who are Gen Zs, and those who we're interfacing with in the high school level and the middle school level are even younger than that, right? So the impact of COVID-19 will impact us for at least the next 10 years. So when I say that, a lot of our students are a lot more comfortable with texting, right? A lot more comfortable with writing you than a lot of face-to-face conversations, right? They'll even tell you, I have some level of social anxiety. So it's really helping our students to get to a place, right? And now we're talking about interns of being comfortable with working with adults, with speaking with adults who are sometimes significantly older than what they may be, right? So you have to almost be willing to meet those students where they are, working with educators to understand what some of those challenges may be when they're coming into your workforce, and then also working with your workforce to help them understand we're not talking about baby boomers, right? We're not talking about the silent generation. And we know that these students are leaders, right? Naturally, they want to be successful. They have all the dimensions that are easily transferable into any of our industries. We just have to be willing to meet them where they are. And so to me, that's one of the biggest challenges, is really helping those who have been in the industry for a little while. I've been there now. I've been employed within energy over 10 years. I hate to say it. I know I don't look like it. But really helping leaders to understand that students are a little bit different than what they were when they came in.
That's a great point. Donovan, what about you?
So I'm a millennial too.
Yes.
For me, one of the biggest challenges that keep me up in the morning or wake me up, and this challenge may not be a challenge for people in this particular room, but when you see future energy, right, and when you hear energy expansion, it almost seems as though people think that you're removing the existing energy forms. And that's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is oil and gas will still be prevalent, correct, right? We just want to add some other energy forms into the mix, right? And so depending on who you're talking to and what their perception of energy, it's almost like a barrier when you say future energy, because they think, oh, well, does that mean we stop what we're doing? I said, no, that just means we optimize what we're doing. We can continue to train process operators and technicians and et cetera, but there will be some new skills that will come along with that training. The existing skills are transferable, yes, but it would be crazy if we have new employers, new jobs that don't require new skills, right? Those things are cousins, those are related. So the biggest challenge for me is mindset and mentality. One of the ways that I've been trying to tackle that challenge with a solution for our campus, starting in August, we've invited so many stakeholders on a monthly basis to kind of educate our population, our staff, our faculty, and our communities on different energy forms. So for example, we've invited the University of Louisiana to come and speak about their solar energy initiatives, right? We've also invited the Department of Energy, not the Department of Energy, the State Energy Department, to come and talk about different investments that has been going on within Louisiana, right? To really educate our population that energy addition and future energy simply means energy expansion. We're not taking anything out. We're just adding something to, right? And we have to do that as a state so we can become marketable, right? So we can retain talent, so we can decrease poverty, and so we can decrease the income gap that exists if we just don't change anything. So that's kind of what we've been trying to do.
Yeah, yesterday when we wrapped up the keynote, Kimberly Graham asked those of us with Fuel, what is one thing that you would charge the audience with doing? Here's what I'm going to charge the audience with doing today. Memorize what he just said and go be disciples for those points, because it's huge. It really is. It's a massive mentality shift that we need to affect. This is not competitive. This is not either or. It's both and. For those of you who were at the reception last night and heard Senator Mary Landrieu's remarks, we are an all of the above energy state. And what we're looking to bring on and add the additionality across Louisiana, this is not, ideally, if we do the workforce piece right, we shouldn't be cannibalizing ourselves.
Right,
we're adding new. We're bringing more, which is a good thing for the state of Louisiana. Salem, what about you? What are your challenges?
Yeah, so to aggregate what I keep hearing from my partners and what I experience and, with my educational partners, a lot of these investments, whether they be solar, green and clean hydrogen production, biofuels, a lot of these investments are happening now in real time and we've seen an uptick over the last few years. Since 2018, we've seen $23 billion of investments in renewable powered industrial projects. And those are still growing. However, when you look at those job count numbers, the occupational matrices are still unclear. Really getting signals from industry, that can be a challenge. And so we really depend, all my educational partners really depend on that kind of transparency that, in all honesty, might not be available at this point in time. Nevertheless, the involvement from industry is what solves that problem. I do have company partners that really take leadership in going to the schools regardless, because they do know they're going to need a certain amount of engineers. They also understand that they need interdisciplinary talent, and so they'll go on campus. Whether they have the breakdowns or not, they take leadership to make sure that they're able to spread the message about their company and plant those seeds early. Those are the company partners that I really get excited to work with, and so to your point, those programs really do make a difference over time. And students are able to visualize themselves in industries that they really didn't before. And that's a newer trend I'm noticing.
Yeah, it was so funny. I remember when we brought a coalition of our H to the Future partners up to Hydrogen Americas in D.C. over the summer. And at the end of the 2 days or however long that conference was, one of our community college leaders came out and said, listening to these companies, some of the biggest companies in the world talk for 2 days, and they don't have any idea what's going on either. But having that deep, close engagement, that involvement, not feeling like you're behind the 8 ball, not feeling like you're going too far out ahead of those company partners, it builds a lot of confidence in a lot of our educational providers. And creating those mechanisms, those forums to stay in lockstep, absolutely critical. You're spot on. So I do want to make sure we have about 5 minutes for Q&A. So rapid fire, very quickly, what are you most excited about? What does success look like? What are you pumped for? So then we can start with you at the end.
Goodness. The timeline of H to the Future, that project ends in 2027, but we've really evolved to think past a grant program and think what's the transformational nature of this work beyond the metrics that we defined as success with the Economic Development Administration. I'm excited to see talent retention in our state. Because students at our universities, our HBCUs, were able to find jobs at these companies. I want to see labor force participation increase, job growth increase, and I want to look at when I look at the future workforce in 5 years at these companies we're talking about, I want the distribution of people in those positions to truly reflect our population distribution. And so, a lot of those goals we're going to see through with this project.
What I'm really excited about is us getting into the K through 12 space at various touch points that we've never done in the past, right? If we don't start early, we may lose the curve and or be behind the curve. So getting into the 3rd grade space with our after-school program that we plan to launch next year, 2025, getting into the 7th grade space with our summer camp that we plan to run next summer, right, allows both families and those children to be exposed to what energy looks like, but it's also free marketing and PR for River Parishes Community College.
Yes.
There you go.
Pipeline.
So I echo both of them. As an employee of ExxonMobil, right, as a citizen of Louisiana, right, which has become home because I'm not originally from here, I'm most excited about us leading the energy transition. So as everybody has alluded to, we really believe in the and equation as well. And I'm most excited about the opportunity to bring in a diverse perspective, diverse workforce that's very unified, because they have to be transformational in everything that we're going to experience in the next 5, 10 years. Like, we need those different perspectives. So I'm really looking forward to students recognizing their opportunities, whether it's K through 12, community colleges, and our traditional college university settings, that they should be a part of our workforce. Yes, you can go do something different, but this is the forefront of what's to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know that we have a few students and prospective students in the audience today, and I know we have a few female students to that end. Kudos to all of you. So we do indeed have about 5-6 minutes for some Q&A from the audience. We can certainly keep going up on this panel, but want to turn it over to you for any pressing questions coming from the audience. And I think we have a facilitator.
Yes.
There we go, voice of God.
We have a lot of great questions. We have time for just a couple. First, how do you retain and revitalize the existing specialized and seasoned workforce in the energy industry alongside the new workforce that we're building through new pathways and career pipelines?
Such a great question, and the exciting news is that in many fields there's a high amount of skill transferability. You know, when looking at offshore wind, which is already presenting such a huge opportunity for Louisiana's businesses and for our workforce, because we have such tremendous experience working offshore. There's about a 79% or 71%, skill adjacency rate between skills needed in offshore wind applications and in oil and gas applications, and that's a measure we took into account when looking at the skills or the trainings that we want to expand within H2 workforce. And so I think it's just a matter of making sure people are aware of job opportunities in different sectors and understand how their education will prepare them for different jobs, depending on boom and bust cycles, things like that.
Anybody else?
No, I think she said it well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I concur.
How are you stewarding how effective your initiatives are in transitioning participants into industrial and energy employees? Are you seeing graduates of your programs enter the workforce?
So I'll take this one. Yes, we're seeing graduates enter into the workforce. We're also seeing graduates. So one of our key metrics is how many internships were our 3rd and 4th semester students getting with industry companies in the past, and how many internships are they getting now? And I'm talking about paid internships, and one metric is those internship opportunities are increasing, right? So internship is one way into an employer, right? But another internship pathway is, could we diversify our internship opportunities and say, hey, 4-year University X, could you offer some of our students some internships so then they can be a part of your research and development and your youth-inspired research initiatives, right? So we're seeing more students go into those areas. We're seeing more students have internship opportunities that then land them jobs. So that's how we're measuring that.
And at ExxonMobil, our high school internship program, we actually ask for the students to give us feedback every single year. So we're asking for feedback from both the mentors, the supervisors, as well as the students. So we continuously see where we have areas to improve. We also do an effective job of keeping up with those students, right, for every single step that they have. Are they clear on what their next steps will be post-graduation? And then we keep up with them thereafter. So at this point, in the 4 years that we've had the internship, because this will be year 5 in 2025, we've seen about no more than 100 students at this point. But about 10% of those students are actually a part of our workforce working in our facilities right now. And there are some that are going to the universities right now, right, in the community colleges, that are very clear on what their next steps are and how they need to get into ExxonMobil or any other industry partners. I try my best to be very transparent about what needs to happen so they understand, right, this is not just to check the box, but they understand that they can be, and we want them to be a part of our future workforce.
Phenomenal. It's huge.
Were there any specific programs that were notable in helping your organization have a presence before even taking on any interns?
Go ahead.
No, you can take that.
No, you got it.
Okay, all right. So, can you repeat that question one more time, please?
Were there specific programs that helped your organization have a presence before you even took on any interns?
So I think I may have alluded to this earlier. We were working with BRAC at the time, so the Baton Rouge Area Chamber of Commerce. They had a talent collaborative initiative that they were working with East Baton Rouge Parish Schools, and we tried to work directly with them on trying to understand how could we become a part of that. We also had the North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative program, which we've had in place since I think 2012, where it's really targeted towards adult education. More so that was the population, more so than the target. And so we were looking for opportunities on how do we get involved at the next step. So thankfully we had BRAC, as well as East Baton Rouge Parish, a school system that were willing to come along and partner with us as we transitioned into the high school internship. What I also want to make clear is our high school internship is not necessarily just for East Baton Rouge public parish students. The uniqueness of ours is we actually open it up to greater Baton Rouge. Certainly we want students from East Baton Rouge to participate, but we also recognize there's an opportunity, which is where I would challenge any other industry that's in the room to get involved, because there are not enough opportunities for our students to understand what's ahead of them, what some of the challenges are, how they can be a part of that solution. So that's the great thing about, I think, what we do.
Absolutely.
We have just about 1 minute left. Do you have any advice for college students and early career professionals?
Attend everything you possibly can, especially if it's related to energy. If you're here, that's a perfect example of you really showing up. You're going to hear insights from company leaders, sharing their own experience that will help you imagine yourself in an industry. I actually do want to shout out, I've worked with Entergy on a few different initiatives, and they actually held a road show at different HBCUs across the South, and we're at Southern Baton Rouge. And I didn't want New Orleans students to miss out, and so we were able to bus some students from Dillard, from Tulane, over just to hear from Entergy, hear from these ops techs, engineers that really make up their workforce, and power their facilities. And there was a student from Dillard in nuclear physics who was just, he was like, I would love to stay in this state. I would love to further my work here, but I'm not seeing the job. I'm not imagining myself in it, and it would be so cool to work for Entergy, but I'm not an engineer. The power of that event was that he was able to talk to Entergy staff, and they said, no, our biggest facilities here are nuclear facilities, and we definitely have a place for you. Let's talk about an internship. And that connection, those synapses, that's what I see college students experiencing when they're able to show up to events. And conversely, industry showing up at schools and forming their own workforce, taking that responsibility in their own hands.
I can't imagine a better note to end this panel on. Amazing anecdote. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Round of applause to our panelists.